Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is the February 2025 meeting of the Camera Club of Richmond. We're glad you're here tonight. We are recording the meeting, so if you're camera shy and you want to turn your cameras off, that'd be great. Tonight is an image evaluation meeting, and I will tell you right up front, I think we have 91 images that we're going to hear a review on. So with no further ado, since we want to move this along, I want to introduce our vice president. Jane Webb is going to do our little bit of a business meeting and our introduction tonight because our president, who normally does that, is joining us via Zoom from sunny Florida. He wasn't sure he would be able to make it to the meeting tonight, but he was able to be here. But Jane is going to do a bit of an introduction. So I'm going to remind her to turn her microphone on, and then I'm going to share a little bit of a PowerPoint just to give you some updates of what we're doing the next month or so for the Camera Club of Richmond. Here is my screen share.
Well, welcome again from me, but it's good everybody has joined in via Zoom. I was wondering if we have any new members or any new people that are on our Zoom link tonight. If there is, could you give us unmute your mic and say who you are? Okay.
I had my wife introduced, but our youngest son just called from college, so she had to take that call.
Okay.
But she'll be back.
Richard Haas, this is my first time attending the meeting. I was invited to join the club by Martin Evans, whom I've known for quite some time. I'm pleased to be with you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
And then we have a couple new members that joined the last time. And if you could move the slide along, Patrick Murphy and Debbie Fisk have joined us. And welcome. It's great to have everyone. As the vice president, I'm in the process of looking for presenters for 2026. And if anybody has any recommendations that they would like to pass along to me, please go onto the website and find my email and send me any links that you might have or people that you find that are interesting that you might like to have join our club. Our meetings are on Southern Exposure and on our website. And of course, we meet every month, the second Tuesday. And our next meeting is going to be on March 11th with Laura Twining. And that's going to be a virtual meeting. And she's going to be talking about intentional camera movement. And of course, we'll have networking first and presentations. And you notice after networking, there's a little slash for snacks. So if anybody wants to bring some snacks, you're more than welcome to do that. And Doug Turner, our treasurer, has said that dues are due. They're only $45. And if you take a picture of this QR code here, you can go right on and pay your dues. And we also need, with the dues, a release form so that we can show your photographs. So I was hoping we would be in person tonight and those forms would be available and you can sign them, but look for them next month. Our activities and educational opportunities coming up are, there's a Richmond Pro Lab tour on March 7th and the Intentional Camera Movement Workshop, which will be led by Laura Twining, is March 22nd, and that's going to be at Forest Hill Park. And then there is be a post-processing and Lightroom workshop led by Fred Martin in May. You can find out more information about all of these by looking at the QR code here or going into our newsletter or the website, and there'll be more information there. Karen is reminding us, that you can also sign up for the Facebook group, which I personally really enjoy because people are posting their pictures on there, and it's a wonderful way to join the club together and see what people are doing. And then like our Facebook page and our website, and you can also on the website find the end of year competition winners for 2024, which is always a treat. And last but not least, Karen would like to know about your gallery gossip. If you have an image that is appearing somewhere, write to her and tell her so we can toot your horn. And Pat, our digital director, and she's the one that we sent all our images to this evening. And Pat, thank you so much for doing all that for us. The assigned subjects for 2025 is attentional camera movement, moody photography, and lights in the night.
Hey,
And down
Jane,
below, pardon me?
I want to interrupt you just a second. The ICM workshop is Heidi Nunnally.
Intentional camera movement?
Right. Heidi's going to be doing that.
Oh, Heidi is going to do it. Okay. All right. Thank you.
This is
If I
not,
make any other mistakes, just jump in and tell me, please.
you didn't make a mistake. This is actual assigned subject evaluations. This is not a meeting.
No, the slide before that, I just couldn't get it out fast enough
Okay. All
with
right.
the work, with the meetings that are coming up.
And the evaluation dates are listed below. And if you notice next to that, the submission deadlines are noted there as well. And midnight is when they're due on those days, April 5th, June 7th, July 5th, and September 6th. Pat Davis wants us to know that the Montpelier exhibit, A Scenic Virginia, is still up, and it'll be up through February 20, which we're going to have to get there this weekend if we want to see it. And then there are several members who have images at the Artworks and the Crossroads Art Center, and those go through the end of February. There are upcoming competitions that if anyone's interested in entering the competitions, the RVA Thriving Artist one is coming up, the 2025 Hillwood collection, and the Virginia Orchid Society. So look for information. I think that's announced on Meetup. I'm not sure if anybody can correct me on that, but you can find information on that on our website. And also about exhibits, again, this one is a reminder that the Montpelier one is to February 20th. We have an exhibit scheduled to open for First Fridays at Richmond's main library in August. And we have an exhibit in discussion with the Chesterfield County Rec Department at Beulah Recreation Center. And details will be forthcoming on that. And it's a beautiful facility and a great place to display our work. An exhibit at the Cultural Arts Center at Glen Ellen is in the works as well. And that's a wonderful, beautiful place to display. I saw that last year. And other venues are being explored. So we thank everyone that's Pat for doing all that and looking into all these different options for us to show our work. And tonight, with no further ado, I would like to introduce Anthony Rumley, our evaluator for this evening. He is the owner of Anthony Rumley Portrait and Fine Arts Photography here in Richmond, Virginia. He splits his time between Richmond and West Virginia. And it's a smart choice because West Virginia is a great place to take photographs. But he started his love affair with photography when he was in the Navy. And Navy took him many different places, and he got bit by the bug. And so when he went on to do a full-time work as an engineer, he continued to photograph. And then 25 years ago, he made a big switch. He left his engineering degree and went full-time photography. And since then, he's gotten many degrees from PPA. He's certified and a professional photographer and photographic craftsman. And he's got other degrees. I won't list them all in time, so he has some time to do our photographs. But one of the things I was really impressed by reading Anthony's bio was his nonprofit work that he does for people. He is the area coordinator for Now I Lay Me Down to Sleep, which provides bereavement photography for families experiencing the loss of a newborn. And then he also takes photographs for coordinators too. He does portraits of children that are in foster care in hopes that they can be placed in homes. And he does other fundraisers for local churches and in schools. And so I think that, Anthony, that speaks so very well of who you are and how you're willing to give back to people. And we thank you so much for today being willing to come and look at our photographs and give us constructive criticism and how we might be better. And Anthony, I'd like to turn it over to you now. And if I miss some things, please jump right in there and tell us about it.
All right, that's great. Well, thank you. I think after hearing that, I'm just going to go ahead and retire. So, good evening, everybody, and thank you for that introduction. I certainly appreciate that. We do need to do an update on the bio. So there's things I'm doing now and not doing and changing. And that seems to be the nature of our profession. You know, when I first started this, it was film in those days and made the transition into digital, just like in engineering. I used to sit and do hand drafting and watch the transition in that industry go to CAD, and worked on some of the first computers and CAD systems that there were. So to see two and completely different industries make that transition has sort of make me uniquely qualified to discuss a lot of issues that we have. So that gives you a little more background again. So I'm going to see if we can get the screen shared here, if they gave me permission to do that. You guys will have to tell me, because sometimes it chooses different modules of what it wants to show when I'm sharing. So you guys will just have to let me know if you actually see the image on the screen.
It's there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So before we get started here, I guess another thing I want to say is my disclaimer, because I did hear that we have a few new folks on, and that's fantastic. I've been doing this for the Camera Club for a really long time. I don't know why they keep inviting me back to do this, but they usually used to give a disclaimer that I'm straightforward. And I was the same way when I was an adjunct instructor out of J. Sergeant Reynolds. One of the things I tell my students the first night is, if you're in this class to hear that everything that you submit to me is amazing, you're in the wrong class. If it is amazing, I'll tell you. If I don't think it's amazing, I promise I'll give you information on what I think it would take to make it better. And most importantly, it is only my opinion. That's why when we have judging in other arenas, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 judges, because you'll have varying opinions based on their backgrounds and other elements of what their areas of expertise that they might have. And before I forget, I do want to throw out 2 more educational opportunities for you. This weekend is the Virginia Professional Photographers Association event in Richmond. You can find that information online at vppa.org. And then also next month, I'm also vice president now for the Professional Photographers of West Virginia, where I am currently, and it looks a little bit like what this background is behind me here at the moment. So I don't match Fred's beauty up there in Canada, but it's pretty darn close. But next month we'll have an event. You can find out information about that on Facebook with the Friends of Professional Photographers of West Virginia, or Friends of PPWV as it's listed. So if you're looking for yet even more educational opportunities, there's 2 for you in a professional arena, but everyone is invited, and you can see that information online. So with that being said, getting started. And I don't know if you have a moderator that wants to read the titles for these.
I do.
Not as we go, or I can read it. Got to jump back and forth on screens to do it.
Yeah, I'll read it for you, Anthony.
That'd be great. Then I won't have to keep changing screens on you guys back and forth.
Right. This one is titled "A Door Indoor Indoors."
Love it. So, you know, titles that you come up with that are clever like that are, you know, you sort of get points right off the bat. So that's fantastic. This is great. It's great to sort of see this opportunity to capture this the way you have pretty good control of the light, because, you know, you've got blasting sunlight probably back through that one door coming in, and then you got some additional lighting on the interior here. So nice tonality across this, good for capturing this. Your techie architecture folks are going to not necessarily approve of the cancering that you have of this image, the tilt. Most people would probably go ahead and adjust that out just so they don't take the hit from the technical guys that photograph architecture. And then sometimes in these old places, that's kind of what they look like. But I don't think it probably is in this case. Just be aware of that if you're looking for an area to improve in.
That was by Jeff Stevens. This is titled Abandoned Adventure.
Yeah, yeah, I see that. So this is nice. I always like a storytelling. You hear that title, you kind of wonder, if this just got away from them, they went overboard. You can start weaving your own story of how this came to rest here. It's interesting. It's a little tight for me on the cropping of it as far as sort of seeing the full story. And then as I start looking around for the rest of the story, what I see are all of these elements of weeds here, whatever they are, growing up sort of in the front. And then that sort of impedes me a little bit in sort of getting into the image. I don't know that it adds in this particular case to the strength of this particular image. So I probably would have backed out a little bit more to tell me a little bit more of the story of like maybe where they are, and maybe choose a slight angle to the left or right to maybe try to avoid those things.
That was by Marianne Barnhart. After lunch stroll.
Nice. So hopefully this was captured with a really long lens through a fence. So this is pretty good. Nice sharpness across here. You see the texture in this. Sort of the overall feel of this is just really bright to me. So if I had a magic wand, I would darken this down a little bit darker. And then I'm not sure that the white underlay is helping you in this particular image, because what's happening is my eye is sort of going out to that white area that's around this. And I want to keep focused right in the center of this. So I do feel that this was darkened down, maybe increase the contrast just a little bit, really make that face and that eye stand out. And then we'll start noticing the other details of, the blood on the teeth and things like that. But I do like you captured them in motion and nice and sharp.
That was by Harold Lana. Afternoon Shadows.
Yeah, this is a nice image. Title certainly fits for where you are. I would say the only downside to this is I really don't have a comfortable place for my eye to land. I keep sort of wandering around the image, trying to figure out where I'm supposed to be looking or engaging. Sort of slimlining this would also probably help a little bit as well, especially from the top, is sort of lead into the story a little bit more. But other than that, I just wish I had like a particular area to kind of focus on. Kind of leaves me wandering around a little bit in the image.
That was by Carol Annis. Amaryllis.
Nice. These are obviously a challenge to get nice, crisp, sharp focus across this. And this is well done. And it has a nice fall off going to the back. Simple presentation. This is well done.
Paul Bickford. Autumn on Bare Rocks.
Yeah, this looks like some West Virginia scenery. Looks very much like this, an area called Dolly Sods. So this is a great view here. I just want to go out there and go hike right in the middle of it. And I think you've brought that to life for the viewer. So this is a nice capture. You have just a really good balance. I'm taking into account, I'm looking at lower res files than probably how they were captured, of course. So I think you probably have like a little more sharpness and detail that's in there. You could probably bring out even a little bit more. It's a tiny bit flat the way that I'm seeing it here towards the front. But if you sort of increase the contrast a little bit, that would really make this thing. But nice scenic image.
Kurt Engelman. Beached Sunset.
Nice. The only, it's nice. It does tell a story. You have nice tones sort of in the sky and in the sunset. but then you kind of have this, additional supplemental lighting that's coming on the back of the boat here, which is opposite, obviously, of where your sunset is. I think this probably would have been better served if you had the opportunity not to have that light on the boat and maybe let it be a little bit more in silhouette. I don't think you need to see the detail of the boat. So I don't know if that was a flash, if it was a, porch light from somebody's dock, next to this that you may or may not have had control over. But that would have been a little more engaging to have that more in silhouette, because the rest of that is really nice capturing the moon up there and everything else.
That was done by Jay Denning. Blocked shot.
Nice. Yeah, these are definitely can be a challenge to get in sports. You shoot like 10,000 and you end up with like 2 or 3 that are great images. So these are tough, but yeah, it's a completely believable sports image. I like that you've included enough so you see some of the fans in the back, some of the reactions of the players there. So for sports image, well done.
That was Eric Franks. Blue Hour.
Again, somebody's pulling their images based on knowing me here. Again, very much like my drives to where I am and back here now. This is great. So be careful when you're doing the scenics like this, not to get your horizon kind of close to the center of where your image is. You kind of want to push that to a third, either from the bottom or from the top, ideally, and not really kind of split your image overall, kind of down the half. And this is really close to getting there. Other than that, it's a good capture, nice balance, and good storytelling. I even like the hood here, which you don't normally see. Most people just would show the view and not that. So a nice little additional element. You see that nice tone from the sunset coming across the hood there. So a nice, lovely image.
That was Ted Jerkuta. Breakthrough.
Nice. This is really simple. I'm not even sure exactly what that is. It's coming down a leaf or stem or whatever it is, but nice into that point. Very simple, clean. Looks like fairly sharp across most of that. So nice, clean, simple image.
That was by Pat Davis.
Another thing, I may slimline that a little bit more. I think you could probably come in a little on the left and right, and maybe make that a little more interesting and to the point of your photo.
Oops. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I didn't know I was done, so it's okay.
Sorry. This is titled Breakaway.
Breakaway. Awesome. Man, I know firsthand these are tough. Shot a lot of these, but this is really well done. Sometimes it's hard to get the perfect shot of these because you have the birds down here at the bottom right have completely different lighting than these up at the top because of the smoke, the clouds, the change in distance, humidity. All those things are factors when you're shooting these shows. So you really do. They're one of those kind of like the sports. You have to shoot a ton of them to get that perfect shot. As far as the placement goes and capturing this particular scene, that's good. Sometimes I will play with these though and try to bring out and cheat a little bit. I'll bring out a little more contrast in those other ones because there is a big difference, especially in that center one. Can you guys see the pointer there? I can start using this.
Yes.
All right. So now we'll really have fun. So the image here, obviously a lot more faded in these than what you have here. And again, it's not like you can tell them which direction to go or anything. It's luck of the draw. But if you can do a little bit of post-production work on that, learn that, nicely done.
That was Joe Ring. Buddha's Buddy.
Cute. Nice little story. Just a fun kind of capture. Looks overall a little desaturated to me. I probably would enhance that. And it's kind of odd that this is like really colorful, like in here, and then everything else is kind of flat. So I'm not sure exactly kind of what's going on there. But that'd be my input for this one.
That was by Carrie Gottlieb. Celestial Cataclysm.
Wow. So there you guys have to be really happy you have somebody that can announce the title of that. Because when you get fancy with titles and you use crazy names and wacky, you're not always going to run across somebody that can present the title the way that it should be. So just be mindful and careful of that, because somebody can totally butcher your title and the judges are scratching their heads, wondering what it's supposed to be. And then they look at the image and they're scratching their head, wondering what it's supposed to be. So you can have two kind of strikes there. This is interesting, just kind of a crazy off the wall art piece. Good job for creativity. But, I'm kind of left wondering, okay, where am I supposed to look and what's the story, kind of behind it? Some people are going to look at this and go off the wall, think it's great. Some people are like, don't quite get it. Because you have kind of like weird things happening. Like you look over on the side, like these things are happening here, down your corners aren't clean here and up here as well, presentation. And then you just have these highlights that are completely kind of blown out. So it's an excellent on concept of having something completely off the wall that we don't normally see. But I think it needs a little bit of refinement in the ultimate presentation of it.
That was by Marianne Barnhart. Close call.
Yeah, also known as a tough day at work. This is great. Great capture. I mean, just, again, these are so tough to get, but if you look in here, you just see, they've captured all these little pieces of dirt that are flying up off the ground, just the positioning. I just like really watching this poor guy or gal that's happens to be on the ground here. So great capture. Great converting it to black and white too. Huge fan of that for this particular shot to just add a little more grit to it. And sort of to that end, I would, again, could be what I'm seeing here on the screen. I'd like to see a little richer of a conversion on this, a little deeper in the blacks, a little more contrast in this to really make this sing. But great image.
That was by Joe Ring.
Good job, Joe.
Crested cactus.
All right, so man, what a wacky thing to, have that in your backyard. Neighbors would be over for sure. This is just such an interesting cactus. I've certainly never seen one like this, but this is like almost reminds me of like a Viewmaster kind of shot. Just the saturation I'm seeing, the fact that you got sort of bystander down here in the bottom of it. I know sometimes when people do these travel shots, they're like, well, I couldn't get a shot of it without them. It does give you a sense of scale having a person there. But you get this sign that's back here. If you could have chosen an angle a little to your left to kind of avoid that, I think that's just kind of being a picky thing. And I'm not entirely sold on how tight a cropping this is, especially up here at the top. I'd like to see a little more space above that, since you give me so much space sort of down here below the arms. And then I'm not sure about the white outline. I'm not sure that is the best presentation choice. You may want to play with that a little bit.
That was by Shashi Air. Crystalline cactus flower.
Nice. I love the translucent quality of this. The kind of light stroke you have around it. Almost didn't even really notice that even at first, because I'm so captured by the subject itself. So this is nicely done. Nice presentation for this. The white does work for this particular one, just to sort of keep it simple and elegant. So nice image.
That was by Susan Kennedy.
Excuse me.
Introducing Platinum Comfort by Gilman.
That was Denali Lakeside.
All right. So nice image. Again, would love to be right out in the middle of that. The only thing I'll say that about these, your contrast is a little flat across the mountains of this. And then the lack of a presentation, I think a presentation could have helped on this particular image. The other part is probably time of day. Excuse me. I'm sure that like in the morning or in the evening, the tones of this would just be stellar. So if you have the opportunity to work at a different time of day, I think that would have helped you to come out with a little more compelling of an image. I mean, it's a great spot, but I think it could be even better.
That was also by Susan Kennedy.
And Anthony, I'm just going to read what's in the chat. A couple of people are saying images are cut off at the top and the bottom, that they're not necessarily seeing a full screen.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm seeing it the way that it was sent to me.
And if they're not, they gotta make
That's-
sure that they're also viewing it full screen, because sometimes that makes a difference.
I mean, I'm seeing the full presentation of the math, so I think I'm seeing it the full way that it was sent to me. So I'm not sure, that could be on their end of things.
This is titled Digital Bloom.
Nice. Again, an interesting presentation you don't normally see. And sort of looking at this ring, especially over here on the side, I'd like to see a little more space of that, since that seems to be part of this whole kind of arrangement here. So I wouldn't be quite so close on this side. And then I'm not really sure how you arrived at selecting the stroke colors over here. I would have tried to select something from within here. Maybe that brown is some deeper shade of something back here, but I'm not sure that's the best choice. Like, this is really colorful, playful, lively, and then you come out here and it's kind of like this mid-tone brown. Doesn't, to me, provide the degree of excitement that the center of this does.
That was by Saro. Emerge.
Nice, and great title for this. Titles are hard, but well done on this one. So this, again, nice, clean, simple image. It looks like it's getting maybe a little dark across the top of this, but that just could be how this is. And good to keep a simple presentation on this. I maybe would have made that stroke a little bit darker of a tone, because sort of when it's a jump out, it almost looks vibrant on my screen, and sort of takes away from looking at the subject. So maybe tone that down a little bit.
That was by Paul Bickford. Okay, they're still getting a lot of comments that the top and bottom seem to be cut off.
Yeah, like I say, it's full screen on mine. I mean, I can show it like this if that's better for folks.
And looking at this image here on your screen, when you full screen it, that bottom circle in the
Yep.
feeder is partly cut off.
Yeah, but I'm still seeing it, just so the viewers know. I am seeing it the full measure of
Okay.
how it was sent to me when I'm going to full screen. So I don't know if that's a function of Zoom and how they're seeing it, but I am seeing the image full screen as it was sent to me.
Okay. This one is titled Chirp.
In looking at it on this particular view, is that still an issue for folks? Are they still not seeing it?
I think it may be better to do it this way, because it was cutting off on some of them for me also.
All right, so Fred, are you seeing this full?
Yeah, I'm seeing the Lightroom picture. I can see the image and the full part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can hit I to lose the information in the top corner.
Yeah, I can do that, but it's going to change because I have to pick which screen of all of this information that you guys see. All right, so sorry. So to give this maker the full view, go ahead and we'll start from the beginning with title.
This one is titled Chirp.
Okay. So yeah, I had this problem in my backyard. Same thing. So, this little guy looks like he's almost stuck in that thing, can't figure out how to get out. So I'm not sure what's going on or how he got himself in this situation. So it's just kind of a fun little capture.
That was by John Schickler. Eternal Overlook.
All right. So, great vantage point of Richmond. Overall, this is looking kind of flat to me, though. This kind of, again, we don't compare in competition one image to another. We can for the sake of evaluation and learning for our new folks. So my same comment I was saying before on the other landscape, you want to have, a time of day that's appropriate for the scene. So if you capture this either early morning or late evening, it's going to change the lighting and tonality. The buildings in the background almost look, totally washed out the way that they're presented here. So it's a good angle. It's a great view, great story, nice title. I think it's just not the best time of day.
That was by Susan Jethro Reed. Excited for the chase.
Excellent, and I would say so. Looks very excited for the chase. So nice capture, nice and crisp across this. Again, kind of challenging to capture these. You take, 1,000 to hope to get a few that are in focus and have the look that you want, and eyes aren't closed and tongue's not out to the side. It's a real challenge. So well done on this. I think maybe a little presentation on this would help the image be a little more exciting and a slightly different crop rather than just being right in the center.
That was by Tony Johnson. False shamrock.
Nice. This is a nice, beautiful, clean image. It's kind of floating in the middle of space, so we're kind of wondering like how it arrived here. But sometimes, for an art piece, you might see this hanging in a lobby or something like that. That would be suitable for this particular image. But, nice clean whites across there, nice soft tones in the greens of it. So nice cropping and presentation.
That was by Dawn Hannah. Filmy Fern Falls.
All right. So, waterfalls are great. The only, on this one, waterfalls can be a challenge, obviously, as if you've ever tried that, This one just seems to be either not the best waterfall to photograph, or I probably would have cheated and rotated and tilted this a little bit. It just has this whole feeling of just being at this weird angle. And it very well could be that's how it is when you're standing there and you're looking at this. But I'm not sure that all of this down here is really contributing. You're telling me to look at the falls, and the concentration, in my opinion, and the beauty is like in this area for the falls. I'm not sure that a majority of this image is actually leading to where you want me to look and enjoy.
That was by Kurt Engelman. 5-star.
Nice. So pretty straightforward, nice image. The parent would be thrilled of this child. Looks like a typical, almost kind of a headshot even for an adult. And the presentation, as I'm seeing it, it looks really flat across the entire image. So I don't know if that was done on purpose or in post-processing, or if that's just the look that appeals to you. If it were me, I would just like to see it. I mean, he's a lively 5-year-old, I'm assuming, and some nice, vibrant clothes there. I probably would have increased the contrast and saturation maybe a little bit on this to bring him out a little bit more. But again, I'm sure the parent grandparents are probably thrilled with it.
That was Rebecca Perry. Oh, Lord. Sorry about my pronunciation. Fjord Solitude.
Nope, that's great. Fjords are wonderful. So this is, again, want to be right there in the middle of it. So good job on finding a good spot there. I'm not sure you're getting the appropriate amount of detail in your whites back here in these areas. I know somebody's going to be like, there's nothing back there. But, if you look at this, it just looks like it's almost no detail of anything at all, even in through this area. So again, this could be in your post-processing of your highlights and your white tones, but you're kind of missing areas across here where I'm fairly confident there's going to be some areas in there that you can get. It just looks a little washed out in those areas back there. Again, we comment on this as judges. We don't know if these clouds back here are real. That's how they really were. That the proportion of the clouds and the way they look don't look proportional to like how the mountains are. So if these were dropped in, I would say pay attention to that. If they were not, send me a message, tell me I've lost it, and that's okay too. I would probably take out a little bit of this water at the bottom, because again, you're telling me to sort of, I know, look at this whole scene, but all the additional water down here isn't really adding to it. If you sort of slimlined this a little bit, I do think that would make that image stand out a lot more.
That was by Carol Ennis. Fleeing the Frightening Fungi.
All right. Well, I'm not sure who is fleeing. I want to see like some little critter in there, like running from this thing. So those are, yeah, I'd say they're pretty frightening, and depending on your size and relationship looking to those. Nice black and white conversion there. great sort of storytelling, because you can kind of look and see that one in the back. Maybe he's the one that's fleeing away from these two. Who knows? But you can sort of put together that story yourself. Nice, simple presentation. Probably make that stroke of the gray around here just a little darker, or maybe even not as wide, to not compete with this as much.
That was by Karen Davis. Foggy Morning Sunrise Rockfish Gap.
Okay, so here we go. Crazy title, long titles. It may sound like a great idea at 2 in the morning when you're trying to figure out, oh my God, I need a title for this thing. What do I call it? Because I've had plenty of those moments. It can be a challenge, but usually the more simple titles do better in competition than ones that are really super long. So I would try to condense your titles down on this, is my only recommendation for you there. But as far as slimlining this, that's well done on that part of it. Nice capture, nice tones across the background. So nice image.
That was by Mark Best. Gaclatour Arch.
Wow, it's a cool spot. I don't think I've ever seen this. That's really nice. As I sit back and sort of gaze at this, though, and I'm really trying to get into the center of that image and like how that's arranged, my eye keeps traveling out to this brighter gray on the outside of this. I think that being much darker would help your presentation stand out much more. Add a little more contrast and a little more blacks in across that sculpture and formation that's there. I think that would really sing. The only thing I'll be careful of is like up here in this little corner, it looks like you're getting some kind of vignetting or darkening that's happening here. So I don't know if that's something you've done in post-production. Just be mindful of those little elements, because once we really like something and we start looking at it, we find those little things.
That was by Jeff Stevens. Getting Closer.
Nice. Again, sportsman, tough. This is a great capture. You know, I'm not sure she's going to love this, because, you know, you're getting those kind of things. And that's what happens when you're capturing sports, or musicians are really hard to capture sometimes too. They do weird things with their mouths a lot of times, especially your guitarist. You get that. But I'm looking, it's almost like some weird kind of post-production stuff kind of happening here across, like that's really blurred out there, but then we're seeing this. So I don't know, some filtration's been used on this, some filters. If you do use like some of the Nick filters and those kind of things, you just have to be careful that those can do really weird things to skin tones, especially. So you just got to be really careful and compare your before and after images, or if that's something, and it just looks really a little odd of the coloring and tones down here. So again, just be careful. As far as the angle, the presentation, all that's well done.
That was by Ling Whitworth. Gotcha.
All right. So straight to the point. These presentations are going to be probably 50-50. Some people are going to see that and be like, that's old school film peel, and it's really going to get them, and then others will be like, it doesn't really add to it. In this particular case, I'm kind of on the more of, I don't think it necessarily adds to the image, or the tone of this is just really odd. Choice for this one, in my opinion. If this crowd wasn't back there, yeah, people are sort of walking around and moving. I know you can't change those kind of things, but it just affects sort of the tone and feel and date of maybe when this was taken. So since this is sort of more of a modern presentation, and you got the signs back there for advertising and all that, I don't know that an antiqued application to this is the best choice. Personal opinion.
That was by Philip.
The sharpness across that and capturing the image, fantastic.
That was by Philip Snyder. Greet the Day.
So, I got to think a little bit on this one. You sort of see the sun maybe breaking through, but that's pretty high up for greeting the day, unless it's just now coming through. And then I look and it's just really dark on the sides here. You know, you've got maybe a little bit of distortion. You've got these branches sort of coming in. So this is a little harder of a story for me to get into. You know, if I'm trying to weave a story, which is normally what I try to do with the title, greet the day. What are we greeting? What's happening here? And it's just tough for me to buy into this. There's no presentation for it. So overall, I think the image is just a little tough to enjoy, having not stood there and seen this for myself.
There was Gary Kornfeld. Harbored safely.
All right. So you cut it really close here on the bottom of that. So, you know, if the sky were a little more interesting, then I would maybe forgive that. But since literally nothing is happening in the sky up there and it doesn't have like really a tone or a color that makes it interesting, and it's kind of flat overall, I think a different time of day, which I know you guys may get tired of hearing that, I think would be better for this. And then I wouldn't crop it and cut it quite so close there on the bottom. That's a little dicey trying to do that and get away with it.
That was by Jane Webb. Harsh winter.
Man, no kidding. Other things like frozen in place or their tongues frozen to whatever they're trying to lick off the ground there. That's just a tough day out in the wilderness, though. So harsh winter, man, nailed it. Nice tones across that. Make sure you don't lose out on your detail in the dark areas of this. I would like to see maybe a little more of the scene kind of left and right, but wow, what a cool, cold image.
That was by Carol Hageman. Having a good day.
Yeah, I'd say so. So this is nice capture. Looks really sharp across the surfer here. Sort of see everything. Good placement. You know, it's just weird. You know, this is just the color of the water in certain places that you go. Not our favorite choice. It's kind of this weird shade of green. And I see what you're doing. Probably a lighter tone is what it looks like you picked for this outer mat. I probably would play with that because this is already kind of washed out across here. This is a weird shade of green to begin with. So I don't know that I would go with that particular shade for that. I think if you took that and made it a lot darker or maybe something completely different, see if that maybe makes your image stand out a little bit more.
That was Linda Schmiel. Iconoclast.
All right. So again, some people are going to be like scratching their heads looking at this. So there's my word of advice for you on titles. And then you have like this giant space here at the bottom, which isn't really contributing anything to the storytelling of this. And then there's an odd tone to it. So if you have like a really magnificent, if I can speak, element like you do here, I would come in closer on that. You don't need all of this down here. This is super cool. All of this behind it, super cool. Your story is inside this. So you're just out too far from it. And then again, I'm kind of now what they call old school and liking presentation. I think that would add maybe to it, but at least come in closer on that. That's your story right there. And that's amazing.
That was Gary Kornfeld. Icy pinks.
Nice. So this is great. So you guys are enjoying this cold weather somewhere. Really nice. I mean, capturing this looks pretty sharp across here without even zooming into it. Sharp across that, and then these get slightly out of focus, keeping my eyeball right here. Great placement. Nice presentation.
That was by Pat Davis. Incipient touchdown.
Nice. So again, you're right in there. Nice on slimlining this. Nice seeing the action here across the entire field of this. So that's a great sports capture right there. Nicely done.
Bill Whitworth. Inside Oxide.
Nice. So this is, almost could be like a little art piece here. See this hanging down at a museum or something like that. The presentation is the biggest downside to this, the way that I'm looking at it. You have multiple shades kind of going on across here. And I think probably the bright white, which doesn't exist anywhere in this image, is probably the biggest downfall to it. That is, none of this is contributing. This image in here and the tones and the texture and all that, great to see that, great to capture it. Have no issues there, but this presentation is kind of killing this and would hold you back.
That was by Bruce Yoder. It's about the eyes.
So I don't mind kind of square presentations, but the fact that she's in a square presentation but slightly offset, I don't know that that's the best location for her to be in. And then kind of refinements, you guys know I do a lot of portrait work. The way this arm is going back and either in close to her or behind her is making this look really odd on the shoulder, like that arm could be missing. So you do need to make sure that how this arm is coming out and around this way, it should also be coming out and around that way to sort of keep this weird, almost nub from showing right there. Other than that, looks like really nice on the eyes and the work that's done there. Again, in competition, we don't zoom in and look at things. So I'm just looking at it for sharpness because I couldn't quite tell with the way the skin's been done if that was sharp or not. So nice image. Again, maybe play with that positioning just a little bit and be careful for refinements in posing when you capture it.
That was by Dave Johnson. Janet in the Shadows.
All right. So to me, it looks like you kind of were walking down the street and saw this lady photographing, looks like maybe ants down in there, the way the dirt's kind of pushed away from the brick, and you just kind of captured a snapshot. I can't really, it's hard for me to get into the story of this. It is a lady, she may be in shadows, but she's really in dappled lighting, and I'm not really exactly sure what she's doing. So for me as a storyteller and liking to capturing things, this would go into a reportage category if it were going into competition. And I'm not sure I could pull a story out of this with what you've shown me here.
That was by Kat Mintz. Lines of Passage.
Oh, jumped a lot on that. Let's go back here. We're one off. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is nice. Again, kind of one of those things, time of day would really make a difference on this because you just have kind of like this middle of the day lighting coming across. I enjoy sort of seeing the scene of this, especially tying in with that title, Lines of Passage, having the bridge, the train bridge, the buildings, the tree lines sort of going into this. So this is interesting, but I'm not sure, again, necessarily the best time of day for capturing this. It could be a lot more interesting. And I'm not sure you need all of the sky adding into the story as well. So I think you could probably do away with a little bit of that to make it a little stronger on the structural elements of this.
That was by Carrie Gottlieb. Lonely Tree.
Wow, this is a great looking art piece here. So this is nice. I don't know what technique you've done or applied to this, but in this particular case, it works. A lot of times you see things like this and just doesn't make it. But you have the right subject, the right location, right framing, right amount of presentation on the outside mat of this. This is well done. Normally I would think, hey, you need more contrast in here. It's got this odd tone, but for this one, kind of ethereal looking, it works for this particular piece. So nicely done.
That was by Harold Lana. Looking for Lunch.
Indeed. My, what big eyes you have for looking for lunch. So great cropping on this. You're sort of showing this foundation where this creature is sitting and looking for lunch. I'm not sure what kind of, if that's an owl or what kind that is, but really cool. Looks like we have nice capture and detail across the feathers of this. So for an animal shot, again, you look at these and you're kind of like, well, it's really plain back there. If I could wave a magic wand, I would definitely have a different background down there. If you could have chosen a different angle to make this a little more interesting. I think all this back here is kind of what's making it a little blah, because all of this is gorgeous. So looking for recommendations, your story is right in here. And that would be amazing. And it gets rid of about 90% of the problem area that I would call it down here, which really isn't contributing to your story. But this part in here, amazing.
Goes by Karen Davis. More than a mouthful.
Wow, this is great. Love it. So you got, I mean, how much better can you get? You got this great subject, great capture, man, lots of legs hanging out off this thing. The leading line of that stem coming into it. This is, I don't know how long you waited, or if that's not a real bird and you staged it there, that'd be amazing too. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt. It's a real bird, real stick, real kill there. Nicely done.
That was Parks Roundtree. Morning at Bryce Canyon.
Great on the list here. So just be careful. Again, you've got these wonderful roots of these trees that grow out there, and you've sort of cut it right there. So again, you can tell me, wow, there's 50 people standing to the left of that. So maybe there were. If I could wave a magic wand and have a little bit more of that, so this little kind of bonsai looking tree doesn't get cut off there, would that'd be like a little refinement I'd make if I could. So if you have a little more on your original, that'd be a great thing to add back into this. But nice and nice tones across this.
That was by Carol Hageman. Morning has broken.
All right, nice scene here. And again, this is one of those things, you've got your horizon we talked about previously. Your horizon's like, yeah, right in the center. I mean, that's almost dead center. In general, it's just not the most pleasing presentation for a scenic image. If you can, all the sky is great, but it doesn't really add that much to the story compared to what's happening down here. You could easily lose a lot of that sky and put this on a third. So your sky top is across here. That would make that image sing a lot more.
That was by Jane Webb. Morning shroud.
All right, so this is a kind of a eerie looking scene. I see this a lot when you're camping and wake up in the morning and look out and see this. So this is great. You got to be careful on the contrast of these. You can go too far. It's not applied on this one. I think it could benefit from maybe a little more contrast in this, but being careful not to completely get too dark down in this area. Perhaps a presentation on this might make it stand out a little bit more. It is a little challenging to find kind of a place to land and enjoy this. It'd be nice if there were a particular element or a particular tree that we could kind of look at and focus on. I just kind of keep wandering around the image. So nice idea. I would keep playing with it.
That was by Susan Jethro Reed. My red tractor.
All right. So presented this to the wrong judge. And again, you guys can boo and heckle me. I'm not even reading the comments. I don't see those. So hopefully those are going there. You can send them to me later. I'm not a super fan of the selective color unless there's, I don't know, it just has to be the right image for me. You got, I see this and you're telling me my red tractor, I see it, but then almost the whole rest of the image is, this black and white and highlights almost about ready to go out up here. And this looks kind of flat now in comparison. So again, it's kind of a personal opinion thing of whether you like this sort of style or not. If I were going to do this, I don't know that you need to include as much of the scene as you did, because you're telling me in the title to look at the tractor. So when I look at that, I would probably want to be in like really close on that. And that might change my opinion of that presentation.
That was by Evstathios Spinos. My shot.
All right. So again, this is, again, those sports shots, you take what you can, out of the 10,000 you shoot to find those. I mean, this is okay, but it says my shot, but I'm not quite seeing the story. Ideally, again, you got her eyes closed, her foot's still pretty flat on the floor here. She's not that much airborne. I think there's probably better storytelling images that you captured over this. Just the eyes closed and the face in that. This one doesn't grab me as much as some of the other images that we've seen.
That was by Ling Whitworth. Mysterious.
All right, so that definitely does it on the title there, and having these sort of smoky elements sort of coming in and around this. That's nice. They did a pretty good job of not keeping it out of the eyes. Sometimes when these treatments are applied, people aren't paying attention to sort of where those are going and impeding. In this case, it was pretty well done. So nice vignetting on the outside of this, which is, the darkening down for our new folks that may not know what we're talking about. Just be careful. Like, this looks really odd, this transition area that you have down across here. You say this is fairly soft, the way that this is handled on this side, but this looks like a really weirdly handled area over here. So I'm not sure what was here and what you had to do it this way, but that is not helping this image. While I enjoy everything about it here, I get over this point, and this is just not handled well coming across that. So I would refine that and rework that.
That was by Eric Franks.
Sorry, jumped.
Need a hug. Need a hug.
Oh, sweet. So again, parents of this are going to love it. Great. Again, you just have to be careful on these presentations on white. And again, for our new folks, what happens, and the reason we kind of harp on that a little bit, if you don't have that true bright white showing up anywhere in this portrait, probably not even in the eyes, although it looks a little close because it looks like you've lightened them. It just makes the rest of the picture look a little muddier than probably what it really is, because you're giving me a point of comparison. So I think a dark tone matting, if you're going to use that, would actually help bring them out even a little bit more. And you could even probably come in a little tighter on them, because all of this is so bright. It's just competing for attention and keeping me from getting to this adorable face and this look of happiness and peacefulness that the mother has with her child up against her. Here's your story. Your story is in nice and close here. The rest of this just draws my eye away from it because it's so bright.
That was by Linda Schmiel. Nevermore.
So, interesting. Yeah, it looks like we're coming in for a landing here. The other foot's not quite on the edge of the rock here. Really not sure what to think of this particular one. Just has like an odd tone across it. It's just almost like it's, a little washed out. Even, again, sort of same thing I was mentioning before about the solid white that's in there. Don't know necessarily that's the best presentation choice for this one. Just an interesting. So you're going to be on the fence with this one. It's interesting to see this and sort of capture it, and cropping, don't really have a problem with that either. I think you're just going to fall into a kind of an average category and score with this image.
That was John Schickler. Now, really.
All right. So, again, I'm trying to read into the story, now really, I don't know quite what to read into the story, because I can't read like the logos that are here. So I don't know if this is like a corporate ad. I don't know if it's promoting a product, a race, or it's just something she happened to be wearing and she's just promoting herself. So it's a little hard to get into the story of this. One thing I will just note, since I'm coming across this subject for a second time in this competition, some competitions you do have to be careful. They will not let you enter the same subject more than once in a competition. I don't know what the rules are for you guys. I'm just telling you the rules that in arenas that I play in. You can't have the same subject enter twice, even though it's a completely different outfit and things like that. So just be mindful, make sure you know what your rules are when you enter.
That was by Dave Johnson. Old City Hall.
Nice. So again, the architectural folks are going to be going nuts over this. This is really cool, but when you do shots like this and you're showing me cool old buildings, first of all, that's awesome. But then the first thing I'll start looking at is like, wow, are these elements even on both sides? We're nuts about wanting things even. And in here, the stairs aren't even across, the columns aren't even that are there. So if you're going to put a shot like this in, you got to be spot on. You know, you're slightly offset to the left and taking this. You can tell that obviously by the rail that's coming down across here, the fact I can see those. You know, if you're going to do this and you're going to enter it in an architectural category, that's what you have to look at. The other thing with, I don't know if this is by accident or by choice, but up here at the top, you have a super thin piece of your mat that's down there, and it's the same width on the left and the right and at the bottom. I'm going to assume that you did not mean to do this because there's really, that doesn't add anything to the image. I would go ahead and make that just an even distance all the way around the particular image. In this particular case, if you did do it on purpose, I don't really see that that adds to your story.
That was by Martin Evans. On a Pedestal.
All right, good title for this. Nicely done, and man, face mom loves. So this is great. I mean, nice colors in this. I mean, look at the tones. Again, we don't normally zoom in, but just look at that. I mean, that's great. You see all the detail in the feathers, nice subtle line on the insides. This is a good example of a nice stroke. You can see it, but it doesn't dominate the image. So this is kind of a nice example. And just like we were saying on the whites, sometimes your blacks can be that way too. So if you give somebody a solid black out here, then you're going to start looking for those blacks and you have a comparison on the inside. It just so happens, I feel that you have enough darks in here and enough darks across there that the black does work in this case. It's not a negative on this particular image, but you do need to be careful when you choose white or black that those images really work well with that particular tonality.
That was by Ann Fulcher. Opposites Attract.
Great. Another great image. Man, this is exciting. Look at the tones that are in there. Look at the subtleties of the droplets that are on there. The simple presentation, simple stroke line. Excellent. Well done.
That also is by Ann Fulcher.
Nice job, Ann.
Patterns in the Wind.
Nice. This is great. Great title for this too. Man, I would have struggled to come up with that. That's a great title for this particular one. It's like I can almost feel that breeze that's coming across there, the diffusion of the sun coming across, the texture that's in the sand is the right degree to this. Maybe a little presentation might, add to this as well, but this is nicely done.
That was by Michael Bryant. Perfect 10.
All right, so, again, this may be a difficult shot, but I'm not sure. A couple of things here. One is we seem like we're really tight down here on this. I would ideally like to see a little more space so that hoof isn't like right there, at the bottom edge of this. And then I'm not sure that the rounding of this and the bright white is helping this particular image. So I think this is a little challenging. I mean, great capture. Looks like it's pretty sharp across your rider and the horse and the mane and everything here. But again, this presentation just kind of is holding you back. And again, with something that's sort of going in that direction, we generally like to see more lead room in the direction the object is going. In this case, the horse, more so than the space behind it.
That was by Shashi Era. Proud Poser.
That's a great title for this. I mean, I can see it all over his or her face. So this is great. Nice tonality in the sand, nice tonality across the skin here. I mean, you could not have paid this model to probably pose any better than what he or she did in this area. And then you have like this wonderful, like assuming the surf that's back here behind this. This has great tones to it and an excellent title.
That was by Heidi Nunnally. Point Lobos.
Nice. Again, nice capturing the scene. Would love to go see that. Again, like we talked about in some of the other scenics, time of day is really important. Feel again, either morning or evening is going to give you better tonality and a more interesting scene than what you have here.
That was by Terry Troxel. Red Pears.
This is nice. And again, this could be how I'm seeing this or how it's been presented here. It doesn't appear to me that this pair in the front is necessarily tack sharp. So if you have a scenic and these are the only things that I have to look at, what I need to see in there is that this is at least tack sharp in the front. I wouldn't be so crazy about it being tack sharp down here and blurry up here since this is larger and is closer to me. So in this particular one, it doesn't appear to be. Again, that could just be by the time it got to me, but you have to make sure this is tack sharp. It's a nice presentation. It's simple. It's a nice concept of doing something, but I almost wish that there were some like other supporting elements to this. Otherwise, it just looks a little too static for me to enjoy it, I think, as much as I maybe could.
That was by Dawn Hannah. This is titled Reflections.
Nice. So I see sort of the reflections across here, but man, it's really hard for me to tell the story of what's happening here. So I don't think I've seen this particular outfit before. And it's really dark in here. I mean, it'd be nice to sort of see that face a little bit more inside there. And it's really bright on the outside. I realize you're walking around, you probably saw this and like captured it. So you may not have the luxury of being able to pose or move this person around. I mean, it's interesting, but it looks like a snapshot you maybe grabbed at a festival or something like that.
That was by Jay Denny. San Xavier del Bac Mission.
Yeah, and again, man, you guys are lucky you have somebody that can speak. So be careful on these. Again, the architecture nuts. This doesn't look like it's sitting flat to me. So you're photographing these buildings and things like that. Make sure your horizon lines are horizontal and you're not choosing a lens that's bowing things at the side. And then you have like this person that almost looks like they're stuck here on the front. It's just an odd placement. Just looking at it without zooming into it, almost looks like they're stuck there. Again, as judges, we don't know if that's the case or not. But have somebody else look at it and like, hey, does it look like I stuck that person there, and see what they say. And then sometimes you can do things and cheat a little bit with, shadowing or things like that. But, I'm looking at this and I'm looking where the lighting is coming down across here and casting a shadow. And then I'm looking at this and I'm still seeing bright white, like on the front of her face, which, may or may not be enough coming off of that building. It just doesn't look right, the way that is. And then the fact that the bottom of the feet are like cut off, it's like, I don't understand why. So I either would have backed off and gotten those feet or out of the way until she was like on her way and out of it, and then just captured the building.
That was by Ed Hageman.
Can't wait for you guys to email me. All right.
Scrapyard.
All right. So this kind of takes a second here. So I'm really not sure what's happening here with this, because this looks like a regular size like fence once I see it, but then I see all this, which looks totally out of proportional scale as to what's happening there. So I really have a tough time telling what's happening and if that's how this really is. But the scale of everything just looks totally off the wall wacky. Maybe this is just like some crazy macro shot and these are like matchstick size fence posts here. I just have a hard time telling what's going on. So interesting image. I just can't quite tell what's happening. So interesting art wise. And if you just look at it as kind of an abstract kind of thing, well done.
That was by Bolin Milner, excuse me. Seaside Romance.
Nice. So, you look at this and like, oh, and then you start looking at it and you're like, oh, where I'm doing that is just the whatever happened here. So I don't know if this is a treatment or post-processing, but this weird outline that you have coming across, sort of separating them, and this weirdness that's happening in the hair all down across the back where it's almost neon looking. Then I get down here and I have like these splotches of light that are coming across. The overall feel and idea and concept of this is like fantastic and very romantic. But the outlines of all this and the technical side of it is where unfortunately it starts falling apart, and it's just completely blocked up across the bottom. So this is great. Keep at this. Just try to avoid these problem areas that I see here.
That was by Ed Hageman. Selfie time.
Yeah, everywhere you go. Yeah, so that's nice. Again, it's interesting. It's again just looks like you're kind of out doing some street photography and kind of captured this. It does tell a story, but being critical because it's competition. I'm not seeing her face here. It's hidden by that pole. I know you're out. You're kind of capturing this, but if you waited like a second more or moved a little bit to your left, you could have captured that part of it. So it's interesting, but then you got this guy kind of standing back here. I maybe even would, he's not needed. We know where this is when we see it. So I would come in even closer on these guys, if it were me, and, that's what you're telling me to look at is selfie time.
That was by Parks Roundtree. Sentinel of Buttermere.
All right, man, beautiful tones across this. So this is really nice tones in the sky back there. If I could wave a magic wand, I wouldn't have this so washed out looking all back through this area here. Would probably do a little work on that to bring out some darks and contrast in that. It almost looks like a separate element that was like stuck there because it's so different than this here. This is like, fantastic sort of capturing this sort of ethereal look across there. So this is a nice piece as far as the image goes. And then I go out here and I'm like, oh man, why this white stroke around it? That to me just really takes away from the image, because now I've got this bright white, fairly wide stroke around it, which that white doesn't show up anywhere in this image at all. So just work on that presentation side of things.
That was by Venkat Santosh. Solarized Beauty.
Nice capture. Again, not something we normally see with this reverse work or the solarization. You're going to get the grain with that. Unfortunately, you got to be careful with these super dark areas. I mean, the overall feel and look of this, when you first look at it, you're like, oh yeah, nice, something different. And then you start looking, and that's just like too blocked up kind of across here and across here. So I'm going to do a little trick here that I haven't done tonight yet. Just take your images and look at them upside down. When we look at this image upside down, what do you see? I see a bright white streak that's coming down through here, bright white here, and really black here, and really black there. So when you do it, turn it upside down, you're not concentrating so much on what the subject content is, and that will really help you. So if you're ever wondering if something isn't quite right, turn it upside down, just like what I did, and look at it that way, and it should stand out to you readily. The other thing as far as portraiture goes, it's, just turned her into this amputee here. I don't know if that's the best cropping. I wouldn't have had that arm going down and out of the frame.
That was by Espacio Spinos. Solitary Columbine Bloom.
Again, easy on those names. We start getting into the long titles of it, even though that may be exactly what it is. Just wanted to check here. Again, in competition, we can't do that. Just wanted to look real close for the benefit of the maker. So, this looks pretty sharp across here. Then you're getting softer back there, but it almost looks like these are dominating because they're so big and so light in comparison to this. It seems to me like your story is more in this area, and it seems like these elements are sort of competing against it. And it's such a dainty connection back to this. I'm just, man, this is interesting. Your depth of field to have these giant circles of confusion back here behind you also kind of competes a little bit with your element. The beauty and the softness is in this area right in here. So I would concentrate more on this And I don't know necessarily you need all the rest of that, since you're saying solitary. To that, I don't know. So I would play with that a little bit to see what you have. But this part in here, that's gorgeous.
That was by Tony Johnson. Soul Man.
Yes, he is. And he's at it all the time. So again, whatever weird treatment's been applied to this, you just got to really be careful because, you got this again for competition. You wouldn't do this, but for the sake of learning, look how weird that skin tone is. And I'm not picking on the maker, but man, you just can't have this and then have that. That just doesn't fly with competition. And then I look again, I've got all this weird bright stuff that's like happening back here and splotches, and then you lose it. This guy is soulful, man. And if you hang out there, you'll definitely get some good shots of him. But in even closer, but that post-production stuff, man, you just got to be careful on what all this ghosting and weird stuff that's happening.
That was by Ted Dracuta.
You want me to go ahead on this?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Spirit Island, Canada. I'm so sorry.
I was getting ready to change my voice and do it, but I can't. I don't want to talk like Fred, since he probably knows exactly where this is. If it isn't his, I'll pick on him some because I can. Spirit Island, Canada. So this is great. What a great scene here. Just fantastic. Overall, it looks like it has this almost a little bit of a muted tone to it. But for this, it almost kind of works. I mean, just out of curiosity, I'd love to see it, maybe a little more saturated, a little more contrast in this, but it's just such an amazing scene. I think it works for this. I mean, it could have been taken last week, or it looks like it could have been taken in the 50s, and that's, what it looked like then. So nice image, great to keep the presentation of this simple.
That was by Martin Evans. Splendor of Jaipur Doors.
All right. Man, this is nice. This is one of those cases, man, I'm pretty close to almost letting that white fly, but man, I would play with that a little bit because I think if you brought out the contrast a little bit more on each of the doors, that this would really be interesting. These all match like tonality wise and sort of style wise really well. And then you got like the one odd man out. So I would personally like to see a mate either to this one or this one be more similar to those if I were going to present these the way that you have to me at the moment. The other option might be to choose your favorite two of these, put that in the center and a favorite on either side and do a triptych across there. That might work for you also. But sort of seeing these at first, I'm like, love the beauty, love the architecture, love the design of it. That's great. But then I'm looking at this one, so tonality wise different than those, it kind of throws me a little bit. So I guess it depends on the ultimate use of that particular piece. If it's just an art piece or just for fun for competition, again, be careful with that bright white. Not sure it's entirely the best presentation color choice.
That was by Venkat Santosh. St. Stephen's Basilica.
Wow, that looks like a really nice, clean, even shot of this. And this is what I was talking about. Again, never do this in competition, only for the purpose of learning. Referencing this to the staircase photo that we looked at previously. You see how this is very even, and the way that these arches or curves are coming in on both sides, the same degree, kind of top and bottom. That's pretty darn close. And then you just have super clear sharpness and tonality across that. This is just a great presentation of this. Nicely done.
That was by Terry Troxel. Sultry Singer.
All right. So again, you're limited to capturing what you can. Looks like you did a great job on this particular one. Mouth's not doing any weird things for this. Again, if you have a choice of not cutting off fingers and things like that, you certainly could by coming out a little bit more, waiting till her hands up. You kind of have limited ability, but if you're gonna put stuff in competition, you got to go through, and sometimes you have it and sometimes you don't. So it's good. It's a nice capture for a particular scenic. I'm sure she'd be thrilled with it, being a performer.
That was by Jerry Posano. Sycamore aglow.
Nice, and indeed it is. So this is nice and nice. It's glowing again, guys. Man, be careful in that white that's there. So this is great capturing that. That's definitely where your story is. But then my eye bounces down to this. Maybe try darkening that down a little bit so it doesn't draw my eye quite as much, because it does compete a little bit with that. Or just take it out altogether. Since you're telling me to look at the sycamore, I don't know it's entirely necessary that I see where the rest of that is. So play the cropping and be careful with that white on the edge.
That was by Bruce Yoder. Tasty treat.
Nice. So again, on these, just be careful, make sure it's completely sharp across the entire little tiny creature, whatever it may be, when you're shooting them. This looks to be pretty much on the border. Make sure that you have your highlights all captured nicely in these areas across here. And then again, it might be nice to have a presentation on that, sort of pulling from these beautiful tones that you have in there.
That was by Cat Mintz. Tenacious Toddler.
All right. So, good title and an expression here. Again, overall, this whole thing just looks a little muddy to me. That could be a style that you like for yourself, being kind of a portrait guy. It doesn't, and more traditional, it doesn't appeal to me quite as much. And usually if there's things that are on toddlers, which almost all of them have, these little scratches and little boo-boos that sort of show up there, I do go ahead and take those off unless it's part of them permanently. So if it's a mole or something, I tend to leave that. But if there's like scratches and bumps, I take them off. Occasionally I have a parent that says, oh no, they want to leave it on. That's their prerogative. And it looks a little dead here in the eyes. We're not really getting a lot of light in those eyes in there. They're fairly dark. And I want to see that expression in those eyes. I want to see that, glaring at the camera, because he probably doesn't want to be sitting there any longer. But it's just the overall muddy feel of that kind of holds me back in enjoying that more.
That was by Rebecca Perry. The Attempt.
Nice. So, man, yeah, you got to work hard on these too. Those lacrosse guys are tough. Looking at, you see, action here, sort of turf and dirt coming up out of there. Recycled tires is probably what's coming up out of there for this particular field. But anyway, just got to capture a ton of shots and put them in. This is great, but overall it looks a little dark, or maybe a little flat to me. So I think maybe a little better post-processing in this would make that snap a little bit more and make it stand out even better. But fine with having the dark presentation around that. This is actually one you could pull in, one of the team colors or something like that. Here, some of that looks like navy or purplish color that's there. It's kind of hard to tell what that is. Or one of the reds put a very faint stroke around there. It looks like there might be something. I'm going to get in just to see. Thought there may be something there. That might help enhance, give it a little more snap too.
That was by Bill Whitworth. The Crew.
Nice. Well, this looks like a fun day on the water. Nice capture. This particular case, I don't mind the stroke that's here because it doesn't look like it's really bright white. Maybe it's because it's so small, or it's like an off shade of it. So if you did that, good job. It's a little tight. It's like I want to see a little bit more out on the left. I want to see a little bit more out on the right to sort of see the rest of that. I see that you're telling me this is the Crew, and I see that, but I'd like to see the rest of what's sort of happening there and maybe not cut it quite so close. But that's a fun, great reportage image.
That was by Michael Orr. The Great Hall.
Nice. Great capture, man. You don't have like 1,000 people running around there. So good job on that. Having patience or getting there early or late, whichever the case may be. Here you've kept your lines nice and straight. For the most part here, maybe a little close on there, but I'll forgive you on that. The rest of this looks really nice. Just looks like a really great vast scene. You see depth across there. Well handled.
That was by Michael Bryant. Tie one on.
All right. So yeah, man, you guys that know me really well know I could come up with 1,000 comments on this. This is great. You got this old guy down here by the river, but it's just kind of like one of those scenes, you kind of captured it. It's a little flat looking, kind of all and around that. I'd really like to see a little closer in on him, because I'm not sure all of this is really adding or helping in your story. He looks like he could probably be a pretty interesting cat to talk to. I think your story and the interest is in close on here, and you can still have your story without the rest of this, which I think is kind of competing for attention of what's you're telling me to look at here with this guy.
That was by Pat Hutchinson. Turtles galore.
Yes, indeed. So this is nice, man. So you gotta look around. There's a lot there. It gets a little confusing actually in this one, sort of seeing the reflection on there. And maybe you did that kind of on purpose to make even more turtles appear in this particular one. Maybe a little more contrast on this in presentation, but this is just like a really super busy shot. So this is a little tough. I really wish like this weren't here and we could really sort of get in on a segment of that, because here I'm having a really tough time landing in a particular area to look at it. And I know it says turtles galore, and you've nailed that. They're everywhere in this scene, but the tonality of all that is so similar. I almost really get lost in what I'm supposed to be looking at, as silly as that may sound. It's a tough image to view and enjoy.
It was also by Pat Hutchinson. Vine fresh.
Nice. So I like this that it's vine fresh. I wish we were seeing like the rest of the vine and not seeing it like chopped and torn and chopped here. So maybe off the vine fresh for a title, but vine fresh makes me think I'd want to see it on the vine. And then we've got so many different sources of light and specular highlights on these, and then something weird sort of happening underneath there. So interesting to sort of see this and capture it. Definitely give you points for that. Just not sure it pulls it off for me in this particular shot. And then I'm not really following where you picked up the color for the stroke around the edge of that.
That's by Michael Orr. Local Titan.
Nice. Another shot of vodka here as we're getting towards the end. You guys are doing great on these on this particular shot. This is great. I don't mind this sort of being centered here. I mean, this is just, you can feel kind of the intensity of this, probably, the body language sort of leaning into it, the positioning, nice tones that are happening back there. So luckily you had some people with some good lighting going on to make that interesting. Again, just, man, I hate when we get down to these things and we're just like, oh man, it's like half a hand here. So maybe even come in closer to sort of see what that looks like, or if you can back out and get a little bit more of that. Again, I don't know what's happening down below this line. Could be like really weird things. The dude could be wearing his boxers. We don't know. So, we kind of have to judge it on what we see here. But if it's what we have to work with, I'd maybe come in a little closer on that, just so I don't have this weird little bright competing element down here competing against what's going on here. Because this great story here.
It was by Jerry Posino. Wax Wings Waterhole.
Nice. So it looks a little kind of flat overall to me, and there's so much competing back here for this guy's attention, which is where you want me to look at. I would almost want to come in like really close on this little character, because he looks like really interesting, or she, getting their little morning drink of water. So this is great, but all this is just two competing against that. And it's so bright back here, especially this particular element, that it's really hard to enjoy this. Your story is in here, right in this area here. You don't need the rest of that. It's competing against it.
That was by Cindy Walker. Way of the Wind.
Nice, man. Nice capture here. Nice hair on these models, by the way. So good job on that. This is just an interesting, and man, you could sort of, man, go a little bit back and forth on, do you need all of this in the foreground? Because this is such a powerful story up here in that area. I almost think that that would be a little stronger without so much of this, because that's a lot of area. Almost half of your image is competing with this super amazing shot that's up here. I don't think I need all of that when you've got this spectacular, interaction happening up here at the top.
That was by Heidi Nunnally. Webcast.
Nice title. So just be careful here. Totally missing out on highlights in this particular area. That's going to be tough, but if you can give me the rest of that in there and sort of hold that together, that'd be like a crazy spooky background for like a Halloween scene or something like that. That's really cool.
That was by Philip Snyder. Wild Vulture.
Man, check out that face. So again, time of day, if you could just ask this vulture to come back in the morning or evening, I think that warm morning glow or evening glow would really do a lot for that wonderful beak and that hairdo that this gal or guy has. So it's just, a little bold lighting on this, unfortunately. Again, as crazy as that may sound, and I'm not sure where you're picking up these colors for this tone on the inside of that. So I'm not sure it's kind of the best presentation. Overall, looks a little flat back here. So a little more contrast, but man, capturing that and capturing that face, good points on that. Last thing, I know it's maybe cheating for some, depends on what your category you're putting this in. You may consider flipping that, reversing that, and that will look completely different if you do it.
That was by Saro. Winter Bubble Magic.
Man, yeah, that's cool. Not even sure, at first what that is until you start looking and you see the weird, lines of color kind of across there happen from bubbles. So that's really cool. I don't know how close you're in on this, but to get that and sort of capture that scene that you just normally would not pay attention to is pretty amazing. I don't know you need maybe quite so much of that. You could come in maybe even a little bit closer if it'll hold together, but good for you for capturing that and seeing something completely different. Nice job.
That was by Cindy Walker.
Last image.
Winter Rest. Yep. Winter Rest Stop.
All right. Almost at first looks like this poor guy is like down in a hole here. And just kind of wondering what's going on. This is okay. All right. But you've got these blasting, blown out highlights of sun sort of streaking across there. This whole snow thing is, kind of covering up, sort of seeing the face of that. I'm not sure this is the best capture for these two. Good to see it. Good to be out there when it's that cold and capturing images for sure. But like you have kind of nice contrast and everything here, and this gets like really flat and muddy and almost dark here. The way the light is either falling off or the way that you've sort of darkened this down around it. So okay, but not stellar.
That was by Mark Best. Ta-da!
All right, man, I know that was fast, probably for going through these, but also know you guys had 91 photos, and you had the delays start because of the most interesting introduction to a meeting I've ever seen in photography. And those of you who were there know, and those of you that weren't, be glad you missed it. So overall, these are wonderful images. I give credit to anybody that's willing to put themselves out there to, I guess I can stop sharing here unless, we'll talk about this for a second. How much time do we have? Do we need to be done, or where are we time-wise?
Well, I think
Anybody?
I have a little more time.
Anybody out there? There's no one left. I'm not looking at anybody's faces or any of the chats. So you guys, I may be actually talking to myself.
Take your time.
All right. So anyway, anybody that's willing to put themselves out there and show their work and show it to the public and take criticism, man, my hat's off to you. That's fantastic. The people in there for the first time, again, because I heard a few new names in there, I think, that I haven't heard before. So great for putting these in. And again, take the comments and the spirit in which they're intended. If you guys have a couple of minutes, you want me to look at a couple of these and we can scroll through and find them, we can. If you don't feel comfortable doing it in this format, Anthony Rumley at mac.com, feel free to shoot me an email and say, hey man, you ragged on my image and you know why. Again, just sort of keep in mind, it's merely my opinion, but I will gladly share it with you for what it's worth. Now, that being said, I don't know who's moderating and how you'd like to handle that, but if there's any images that anybody in particular would like me to scroll down and take a look at or comment more on, I'd be more than happy to do that for, you know, the next couple of minutes.
Anthony, it's Karen. You're getting a lot of thank yous and great feedback, and as always, a great evaluation. And we do so appreciate all of the wonderful feedback. Does anybody have any questions or want to revisit anything?
There was one comment, Karen, about I'm not familiar with the term slimlining. Maybe he could explain that.
Sure. All right, so let's scroll down and see if we can find one I would do that to. Okay, so this image, for example, is what I consider this is a slimline effect. You see how we've, you know, the maker has made this much longer in the height to width ratio of the particular image. So if I wanted to slimline this even more, that would just merely mean I'm bringing the image down even to like this amount, which a lot of times helps to bring the emphasis more on the subject that you captured. You'll hear me say that a lot for scenics. The one particular image that we had that had a lot of sky in it, I don't know if I can find that real quickly with which one, this one right here, actually. So this particular one, I made a comment of that could possibly be slimline down. We don't need all that sky up there. It was another one too. But even if you bring this down, you sort of see how at the moment that horizon is like right dead center in the middle of that. Look what happens for a second if we sort of push that down to like a third. I'm just doing this sort of quickly. That's, you see how that has more impact on the scenery and the foreground scenery. We didn't lose anything in this particular image by eliminating that much of the sky that was up there. This really isn't adding anything to your story. I don't need to see that morning has broken, because you're telling me morning is broken. Here's morning. Here's where it's breaking. That's where the story is. So those other elements aren't needed to tell the story. So when I say to slimline an image, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Great question.
And I'll add that at the very beginning of the pandemic, Anthony did a wonderful training video for us about adding presentations to our images. And he commented several times about the stroke lines and, you know, the framing that's around it. And if you want to learn how to do that, there is a video on our YouTube channel from Anthony that shows you step by step in Photoshop, you know, how to expand your canvas size and how to add those strokes. Yeah, and it really does make a huge difference as you're looking at some of these images here that are set off by that frame.
Yeah, and like we're talking about that, like this particular one, this white is so bright and so wide, and it just really competes against the story which is there. So see if I can move you guys around. I'm seeing faces and not so much of my screen here. Let's see if I can move this over. I'm normally not working with like all these little faces across. Okay. So your story here, you could even come in a little bit closer. Hopefully the maker's on and watching. But look how much more powerful that image is just by coming in and cropping it that amount. And then I've also taken away that white, which was really competing for attention against the warm tone of that skin that's there. So if you see the difference between this and between that close in crop, bring that back. I should have just saved it. And you don't need to see the top of mom's head unless you're from Richmond. Then some of the moms are like, oh my God, you cut off the top of their head. Like, well, you know, they have one, right? You'll be fine. So let's put this here. but you see how much stronger of an image that is. Those eyes, that emotion that the mom has, that's where your story is. And by putting that white band around it, you're definitely not adding to that story. And by being that far out, you could come in closer. And Karen, I don't know if you have the ability to save those comments in the chat, so I can take a look at those later if you can save those for me and just send that to me.
Okay, yeah, we'll be happy to do that. A lot of really great comments. A
Awesome.
question, do you think the picture of the arch in black and white would look better in color? That's from Shashi.
All right, what's the title of it?
Yeah, Shashi, what's the title? Turn your mic on and let us know. These are alphabetical by title, if you haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah, it'd be easier for me to scroll down and find it.
I think it was maybe 29.
Maybe image 29. Oh,
Maybe 29.
let's go
there it
see
is.
this one.
Yeah.
Would that be better in color? Is that the question?
Yes.
Let me see in color. So, it's hard to tell, without seeing it in color. If it's in color, I can convert it to black and white and let you know that. Unfortunately, I can't. I don't have the magic AI yet to change black and white to color. That'd be interesting. So it depends on the tones of that. If the tones are really wacky, in that it may be better as a black and white image. The thing that was, I can tell you that this is way too wide of a matting and too light and competing against this particular element. So I think this looks nice in black and white, but it's the only way that I've seen it. And then you have to be careful of this vignetting stuff that's like happening in your corners, which is so obvious for presentation's sake. That's kind of a dead giveaway that, some work's been done there. And when you have such a harsh transition across that, you kind of want to avoid that as well. If you'd like to shoot me the color version to take a look at, more than happy to do that. But I think the black and white is nice for this. It's more the matting and this vignetting that's holding it back for me.
All right. And I did put the link in the chat for that YouTube video that Anthony did for us on creating those frames. All right. Any other questions?
Anthony?
Yes.
When you were talking about the thirds, and how do you set up your development module to show those thirds when you brought it down?
You can change this
like when you do crop and then you showed the thirds. How did he get those thirds in there?
Yeah, you can change in your settings of how these lines are set up. There is a shortcut key.
I think it's capital O.
Capital O?
I think.
Yeah, there you go. So if you just hit O on your screen, thank
Capital
you.
L?
Whoever picked just O.
Oh.
But if you hit O on the screen, it's going to rotate through those various crops. So if you're really, artsy, you get into the curves and you start using that. Some people really enjoy having the flexibility of doing that. Mine almost always resides on this particular one because I do most of my production work and commercial work is more oriented towards, portraits and work where the thirds are the typical rule of thumb for what we're using. But if you want to start getting into, the spirals and perfect placement and things like that, certainly those other options are there. But yeah, the O is the shortcut. I was trying to remember. So thank you, whoever pitched in. Okay. The O short is the shortcut key for rotating through those.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, we're coming up on 9 o'clock and we've held almost everybody on this call. So we appreciate
That's
everybody
crazy.
hanging in there. Yeah. Yeah, I think 55 was the number that I saw the most attendees. If anybody saw a higher number, let me know. But we still got 42 of us hanging in here. So
all right. Excellent.
Thank you again, Anthony. And thanks everybody for attending tonight. And we will see you again in a month. Second Tuesday
Thank you, everybody,
of March.
again that contributed. I really appreciate it. And hope you guys have a great night. Again, if you have any questions or comments, you want to heckle me in person, just go ahead and send me an email, anthonyrumley@mac.com, and more than happy to heckle you back. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.